The U.S. Justice Department has struck a deal with Malaysian financier Jho Low to recoup around $1 billion in funds allegedly looted from Malaysian state investment fund 1MDB.
Under the agreement, Low will give up $700 million worth of assets, including a private jet and luxury properties in the US and UK. And that's on top of more than $250 million in other assets previously forfeited, like this luxury yacht. And if approved, the settlement will mark the DOJ's largest ever civil forfeiture.
The asset was bought with Malaysian money. We have proved that it is Malaysian money. We will now make a claim to the American government.
Low has hailed the deal as historic and said he was very pleased. He also pointed out that the deal does not include an admission of guilt or wrongdoing. Even so, Low isn't off the hook. The deal is subject to court approval, meaning it might still be thrown out.
Plus, Low remains a wanted man. He still faces criminal action in both the US and his home country of Malaysia. And Low has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing.
The 1MDB saga has been ongoing since 2015, when investigations began. US officials say around $4.5 billion was pilfered from the state investment fund. The scandal has implicated banks and a number of individuals, most notably former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak.
An expert joins us to share his insights. Dr. O San is a senior fellow at the Singapore Institute of International Affairs. Thank you very much, Dr. O, for joining us. So, Jho Low and the DOJ settling, how big a development is this?
Well, this represents up to about 25% of the alleged amount that have been misappropriated from 1MDB. So, yeah, it is a very big deal. And very often in this kind of circumstances, in this kind of very complex cases, you are faced with the prospects as prosecutors of essentially you try to get the guy or the money first, right? And in this case, I guess they try to get the money first in the sense that the prosecutor side, they were able to recoup up to around 20 or 25% of the alleged amount. Yeah.
And why do you think the Department of Justice has decided to strike this deal with Jho Low?
Well, because nowadays money could move around the world very easily, and they could even disappear, well, as was with the case of 1MDB. So if you don't, for example, lay your hands on these assets, they could be, they could be either transformed into some other assets without you being able to trace them in the future. So might as well do it now when you can still get at them.
Dr. O, so Jho Low has hailed the deal, and he has also pointed out that it is not an admission of guilt or wrongdoing on his part. But we also know that he's still a wanted man, both in the US as well as in Malaysia. So what's next?
Well, I think now the focus will be back on the criminal cases, namely the criminal prosecutions against Jho Low as well as several others. I think as far as the Malaysian public is concerned, I think they're very much looking forward to having a closure, especially on the criminal cases. But unfortunately, the criminal cases, they have not been even commenced yet because, well, people could not find Jho Low.
Yeah, so who do you think is the biggest winner out of all this then, this recent development?
Well, of course, but perhaps the biggest loser will still be the Malaysian publics because, well, up to 75% of the alleged amount is still yet to be found. So there's no clear winner in this case. I mean, because the settlement does not exculpate Mr. Jho Low. On the other hand, well, this is only a portion of the alleged amount.
So how do you think this will have any impact or perhaps any development on the ongoing trial of former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak?
Well, this the related but not directly related sort of cases because Mr. Najib, I think, is being charged with several money laundering charges as well as misappropriation from 1MDB related companies and not 1MDB itself. Whereas these charges, as preferred against Mr. Jho Low and so on, they are well, more directly 1MDB related, and the amount they have been sort of recouped from these cases, they are related more to Mr. Jho Low. But of course, again, as I said, people are very much looking forward to bringing closure to this series of cases.
And what do you think is going to happen next for Malaysia with their sort of pursuit of Jho Low?
Well, of course, the Malaysian government will try to get this amount of money back from the U.S. authorities. And the U.S. authorities have been very cooperative in these manners, for example, in terms of asking Indonesia to cease the yacht equanimity, as well as another amount being repatriated to Malaysia and so on. But I think still all eyes, including the American authorities and Malaysian authorities, are still on Jho Low's whereabouts.
All right, mate. Thanks for your thoughts this evening. Dr. Ooi San, Senior Fellow at the Singapore Institute of International Affairs.